slide says for us. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining. Welcome to the webinar today. My name is Courtney Miles, and I am the director of the App Store and the Build, Partner, and Go-to-Market team for ServiceNow. Today, we're kicking off the second of 4 webinars designed to help you understand how ServiceNow Store solutions can exponentially bring in greater value to the Now platform, as illustrated with our most successful store partners, just like Proven Optics. I will provide a brief overview of ServiceNow and our App Store, and then introduce Proven Optics with an overview of their financial management application suite, which is delivered on the ServiceNow platform. I will close the session with a few important announcements. If you have questions during the presentation, please use the Q&A. We have Jim here from our marketing team who will get some answers over to you as fast as possible. And then if we have time at the end, we will definitely address them. Moving forward here, we've got our first poll. Please feel free to check out the poll, which will pop up here momentarily. I think Jim will go ahead and there we go. So for the first one here, what is your level of engagement with ServiceNow currently? What does that look like? Are you using the platform and app? Just platform, just app? I see the answers coming in here. Give a few more minutes. Take a look and please answer the poll. Great, let's do 10 more seconds on this. All right, it looks like the majority of the audience here is actually using ServiceNow platform and app currently. So that's fantastic. A lot of experience with our platform and our ServiceNow store. Great. All right, let's move forward to the next slide here. All right, so I'm gonna jump into some details around ServiceNow. It looks like most of you are familiar with ServiceNow, but to give you some more context, the purpose of ServiceNow is to make the world work better for everyone. We accomplish this with a cloud-based platform that digitizes organizations so their work flows smarter, faster, and better. Here's a quick look at our platform. Our solutions for a lot of our solutions on the store here are built on our Now platform and are structured to streamline workflows throughout organizations and business rules that unify data, information flow, and work assignments, not just with departments, but across your entire enterprise and organization, making work easier and more efficient for customers and employees. This is how we scale transformation with your enterprise. Taking a quick look here at some numbers, ServiceNow has been helping companies of all sizes and in all industries accelerate their digital transformation from our platform for almost 20 years, which is amazing. With 80% of the Fortune 500 using the Now platform today, we have proven the value of the platform for large and also small enterprises. Our store slide coming through here, the ServiceNow store offers hundreds of enterprise and small business applications, which range from very small to very complex solutions built on Now, our platform, just like Proven Optics. These native solutions provide seamless integration with your current Now products. We are happy to announce that nearly 60% of our ServiceNow customers use at least one application today, with that number is growing on a monthly basis. So with that, I'd like to hand it over to Bill Miller from Proven Optics. Bill, feel free to take it from here.
Awesome, thank you, and welcome everyone. Appreciate you taking some time to hear about Proven Optics and some of the capabilities that we offer on the ServiceNow platform. Our focus at Proven Optics is about linking costs with business decisions. We're going to talk a little bit about that process and that practice and how we can enable that on the ServiceNow platform via our Proven Optics applications. So my name is Bill Miller. I'm one of the co-founders and co-CEOs of Proven Optics. I've been hanging out and doing IT financial management for more than 20 years now. I was a CFO for Nationwide Insurance prior to founding Proven Optics, and have helped about 100 organizations really create and implement a successful IT financial management practice. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about what it means to drive an IT financial management practice effectively. We're going to talk about why it matters to do this at all. We're going to talk about owning the IT value conversation. And then at the end of this, lots of theory and lots of ideas. How do we actually manifest this and make this an actual thing that you can do? And how does the ServiceNow platform, along with the Proven Optics applications, enable this capability for your organization? So we're going to start off with a poll question as well, which is, how does your organization manage its IT spend today? Are you using just spreadsheets? Are you using a point solution? Are you using a homegrown solution? Or, hey, what do you mean when you say manage IT spend? So just take a moment here and let us know kind of the approach that you take for managing your IT financials today. And I can't see the progress on the chart, so I'll let Jim or Courtney let me know when we're ready to
Yeah,
reveal
the
the
questions are
results.
still, or the answers are still coming in here. We'll give 15 more seconds here for everyone to answer. Looks like it's heavily weighted on spreadsheets at the moment.
Not surprised at all. I oftentimes laugh. Spreadsheets are the de facto IT financial management system for the globe, and a few that are not currently managing IT spend at all, and that can be a challenge for sure within an organization. Well, let's move forward and talk a little bit about IT financial management as a practice, why it matters, what the value proposition is, and then how we take theories and ideas and create actual solutions that folks can use on the platform. So one of the things that drives a need for IT financial management is this pervasive perception that IT costs too much. And a lot of that comes from the fact that all we ever talk to the business about or our finance team about is how much money we need in our budget. And it's difficult sometimes for the folks who operate outside of IT to understand exactly where that money's going, what it's being spent on, and how it delivers value back to the business. Interestingly enough, a lot of my finance leaders talk today in particular about how do we get more value out of our IT assets. We've built applications. We have invested in either cloud or on-prem solutions for infrastructure. We have laptops and desktops and phone systems spread about the organization, but are we actually getting full value out of those assets? And it's really kind of hard to connect the dots sometimes between the money being spent and the value being delivered. I think probably the most telling comment I ever saw was this quote from Roger Smith, who's a former General Motors chairman, who said, if I had all the money I spent on IT back, I could have bought Toyota and Nissan outright. And the challenge with a comment like that is it just shows how much misunderstanding there is about how the money spent on technology actually delivers capability, functionality, and value for the organization. You know, the reality of it is you know, IT costs too much when we talk about it, but the reality is there's no business that can really function today without technology. And in fact, when we talk to senior leaders in the business or leadership within the finance team, and we ask the question, do you think you're going to be spending less on technology in 5 years than you are today? Verbatim, nobody ever says, no, we will, you know, no, we'll be spending less, right? They always say, yes, we'll be spending more. There's really no way around it because the dependency of the organization to actually produce results and deliver to its end customer actually is very dependent and linked deeply into their ability to deliver technology solutions. You know, when it comes to extracting full value, this is about connecting the dots. This is about IT helping the business understand how that technology is delivering value to the organizations. And then we've got to talk about managing perceptions. And finally, we talk about the ability to illustrate or show business value through systems and platforms like ServiceNow and Proven Optics applications. Sometimes I get asked the question, what is IT financial management? So that's a great question. And really it comes down to one, it's a method for determining the cost of IT. So yes, it's absolutely about the budget, salary, travel, training, hardware, software, because that's where it all starts. The challenge is that nobody ever picks up the phone and calls IT and says, I need 2 weeks of salary and a month of depreciation. They pick up the phone and they say, I need an application built. I need an outage corrected. I need a laptop delivered to a new employee. And so IT financial management is about one, collecting and determining those costs, but then aligning those costs to the services that we provide. How is it that our labor is used to actually provide technical services back to the business? And then finally, we can add a process for assessing IT value, which literally comes down to the idea that there's a unit cost for the service that we deliver, and then that service translates into business value. And the simplest example is there's a cost to get a laptop into an employee's hands and to make that laptop function and accessible. But at the end of the day, the value that laptop brings to the business is that employee's ability to execute the job that they were hired for. And sometimes we forget to connect the dots between the actual technology we're delivering and the business value that it's driving. There's another thing that's important in controlling perceptions, and this is around processes and practices. And this is where systematizing the practice of IT financial management becomes so critical for its success. At the end of the day, to have a successful, driven practice around IT financial management, that practice has to be repeatable, sustainable, and scalable. And what does that mean? Repeatable means that we can do this over and over again. Every month, every quarter, every year, we have the capability to do our IT financial management practice, and it's consistently executed in a very similar way. And one of the big challenges with Excel as the underlying system that does that is Excel is very difficult to make controlled repeatability within the process. The second thing is it has to be sustainable, and sustainable is about the data that we're using. How do we get financial data into the system? How do we get non-financial data that we need in order to drive those views of value into the system so that we can use it? So sustainability is the access to that data on an ongoing basis, whether it's in an ERP system or in a service level management capability. Scalable, meaning that we have to be able to make it bigger and make it smaller and still retain the characteristics or the capabilities that make it fundamentally work. We can bring in smaller subsets of data initially and expand to larger data sets, or we can scale backwards if we need to as well. Repeatable, sustainable, scalable ultimately make things defensible, meaning when somebody calls and says, I don't understand where this number came from, how did you get that number? We can go back to source systems and data inputs and defend how those dollars came in so that there isn't this question of, I don't trust your numbers. If you are repeatable and sustainable and scalable and defensible, your numbers become credible. And when your numbers are credible, that's when people will start using them to make decisions. And this journey of management through all of this is absolutely a key part of that entire process. So all of this kind of links together into this broader notion of running IT like a business. And I guess if I had a dream of mine, it would be to come up with some kind of catchy phrase like this, and I could start a consulting practice, but never actually have to define what it means. And we get asked all the time, what does it mean running IT like a business? I get asked a lot of times, from customers, the boss wants us to be running IT like a business. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? They're like, well, we don't really know. So we came forward with an idea of what is Proven Optics' view of what it means to run IT like a business. And there's really three elements that make up this idea. So one is in the big bubble on the top, IT management. And this is the governance structure, the portfolio management, the strategic design or strategic goals of IT. It's really all about the governance and the management of IT in that top bubble. And then on the bottom right, IT financial management, sometimes referred to as TBM or technology business management. And that's all about the dollars, the funding. How do we get money into IT? And when we get that money in, how do we actually get it lined up so that we can use that funding in a way that's going to result or deliver in whatever that governance or strategic goals are that are outlined by IT management bubble. And then the bottom left is the actual execution. Like, so you get money and you have goals, you actually have to be able to turn on and make that technology function from a delivery and operations standpoint. And so IT delivery and operations makes up that bottom left corner. And if you mush all those things together, you create this idea of running IT like a business. So what happens in the overlaps? Well, this is where we're trying to connect the dots. So IT management about setting up that strategic goal translating into a set of portfolios. Those portfolios might be projects that are enabling or changing how we deliver the business. They might be projects that are just operational. We want to keep things running, but that is translated down to or provided to the operations team through demand management or service level management or some kind of request process. So as the business requests capabilities from technology, there's a mechanism to get that information to IT delivery so that they can actually produce those results. On the IT financial management side, funding comes from our finance team. It might, if we're in the federal government, it might be an appropriations bill. If we're in the private sector, it's going to be whatever our CFO has determined is an appropriate amount to spend on technology as sort of like that big blanket number. But that funding gets communicated into, and then we have to go through a set of processes. So how do we link our funding to our operations? We do that with our budget, right? Salaries, travel, training, hardware, because ultimately we've got to pay those types of things in order to have a delivery team and to have licenses available for the technologies that we want to deliver. But then how do we translate that dollars back to that IT management? Because now we're talking about delivering IT services. And so those services are defined within a cost model. Here's our infrastructure cost. Here's our cloud cost. Here's our laptop cost. Here's our project development cost. All of those things that come through a set of services. And so enabling all of this, systemically enabling all of this is where a platform like ServiceNow comes in. You can see some of the key pieces right down the middle, from service level management to application portfolio management to project and portfolio management. But we're systemically capturing data sets that allow us to manage the demand, understand the delivery processes. And then where Proven Optics comes in is we're actually connecting this funding piece. We are the element that captures on the ServiceNow platform, helps you build that budget and that manage that forecast, helps you build that cost model. And we link together that operational data that comes from a service level management through your PPM, through ITOM and SAM and all those fun elements with a dollar sign. And that relationship, what are we delivering and how much does it cost, forms the basis of a practice that allows us to articulate the value of IT. In order to kind of understand the premise of all of this, we have this idea about how do organizations make decisions? Because ultimately, we could go through all these processes, we could automate a lot of stuff, but at the end of the day, when we present this back to whomever wants to see it, whether it's a portfolio manager, a senior leader in IT, somebody in the business or finance, we're ultimately asking them to make a decision. And the question is, how do they make decisions? And so this notion of how does an organization make decision is kind of manifest on this slide. And the way we look at it is data is available. It's a piece of information that comes from wherever systems that we're bringing data from. It could be the salary expense. It could be the number of service level management tickets that we get through our through our ticketing system. It could be the number of projects that are being requested, but there's lots of data available in an organization. And data has to be combined to create information. And the simplest way I can explain this is if I said 20 miles and 1 gallon, those are 2 data points. And if I bring those 2 things together, I create information. And I say to you 20 miles to the gallon, right? You'll recognize that. We hear it all the time as a metric or a benchmark that is out in the industry about fuel efficiency. And so we know intuitively 20 miles to the gallon versus 40 miles to the gallon. Inherently, we can understand the relationship of those 2 pieces of information, and we can start to begin to form the premise for how we might make a decision with that information. The biggest challenge is most organizations stop at the information layer. They think that's enough. All the benchmarks you can do for IT, that's just information. All of the decision points we might walk into a CIO with, or we might walk into a business leader with, is just information. And the problem is you can't, as a human being, make a decision with just information. So if you kind of extend the metaphor we were using, if I said, hey, 20 miles to the gallon, 40 miles to the gallon, which one do you want? And the reality is human beings make decisions in context. And so what we do as a person trying to make a decision is we try to take information and put it in context. Well, if I don't provide you with that context, you will make up your own. And so in our example, if I say 20 miles to the gallon, 40 miles to the gallon, which do you want? Well, if you are environmentally aware and eco-friendly, you're going to answer 40 miles to the gallon, even though that's not really the context of the conversation that we want to have. If you like big trucks and off-roading, you're going to say 20 miles to the gallon because there's no such thing as a cool truck that gets 40 miles to the gallon. So context is important. And this is where systems become important, because if we go back to repeatable, sustainable, scalable, defensible, we can repeatably, sustainably, and scalably get data, combine it into information, and actually begin to provide context. So let me give you an example. We have, as a business, 300 boxes we need to move. We have 1 hour to move them. Do you want to use the pickup truck, or do you want to use this 2-door hatchback that gets 40 miles to the gallon? Suddenly, this decision has a different context than whether or not it's an eco-friendly choice or whether or not it's a fun choice. So it may make great sense to use the pickup truck, even though it's not aligned to our eco-friendly point of view, because it's more efficient and we can get it done faster and get those 300 boxes moved. Now, you can move 300 boxes with a little 2-door hatchback. You just need 12 of them. And so now when we put 12 of them on the road, we increase risk, right? Somebody can get lost. There's more opportunity for an accident. We just have to take that in that context of that understanding. And that's really where, at the end of the day, decisions are made, context into insight, which is that full framework. And so systemically, our goal in any practice with IT financial management is to collect data, combine it into elements of information, present it into context so that we are actually enabling decisions within the business. So that's a lot. Theory, ideas. Let's talk about manifesting this in an actual system, and how does that work? And so what you're looking at here is a dashboard coming out of Proven Optics, sitting on the ServiceNow platform. And because we're talking about this idea of data, information, and context, we want to bring data elements together that maybe traditionally don't live together or are difficult to manage systemically together. And so one example in the upper right-hand corner, IT spend by strategy. So I have a strategy, whether it's in my PPM, my project portfolio, or it's sitting in SPM in my strategic initiatives. I can now align dollars from my spending into those strategies. And I can say, okay, why am I spending money in strategies that aren't a top priority? Or why am I spending dollars inverse of how I want to compared to the story I'm telling? So I think the second to the bottom one there, if you can see it, is move to cloud. So we have a strategy, a cloud first strategy. How much are we spending of our IT budget to actually enable that strategy and make it come true. This is the ability to take that in data and combine it into some information and now present it in context. I've taken dollars, I've taken a strategic goal, and I've provided context of all the strategic things that we have on our plate. On the left top, below the scorecards, you'll see another Pareto chart, which is spend by customer. Again, we're looking at who are my top consumers of IT spend, how are they driving that cost. So when somebody comes back and says, I don't understand, why we're spending so much money on business unit X, or business unit X is like, I don't understand the value I'm getting, we can talk about relative to other parts of the organization, how they fit within that spend. And then you can see another one in the middle, top 10 IT services. How do we spend that money? We're starting to get into value now. We deliver laptops, we build a network, right? We have cybersecurity, starting to understand not salary, travel, training, hardware, software, but literally we have a spend in cybersecurity. And it, by the way, takes labor and it takes software and maybe some third-party folks in order to make it happen. But this idea of data information context is what a system like ServiceNow plus Proven Optics can provide to the organization. When we think about execution of Proven Optics on platform, we recognize that a lot of our primary users are folks who are in finance. They're coming from maybe an Excel environment. They're not necessarily ServiceNow system admins. And so we definitely recognize and try to streamline the experience for the team coming in by setting up this views like you see here, which are a couple of portal views. And what ServiceNow and Proven Optics bring to this process is, if I'm doing a budget, I can create my budget online. There's a big button that says create budget. When I go in and create that budget, I could ask for and govern attributes. So in Excel, you try to lock down the columns, you try to get people not to change formulas, whatever the case may be. You can actually govern that very stringently in here and control that capability of who can change what, and also force the inclusion of specific data sets that are important to that process. And then inherently it has a workflow. So now we're coming out of email as our primary workflow, where we're sending around a spreadsheet and we're online with the system. Somebody creates a budget, they click submit online, and it goes, and you can see at the bottom there, it says my approvals, there's a budget for a particular enterprise agreement, and that can go through a workflow and get approved and rejected through the whole process. But wrapping around the execution of, I need to gather financial data to create a budget, the ancillary processes of workflow, approvals, and management makes the process way more resilient, way more scalable, way more repeatable, way more sustainable as you move forward. And that just ups the credibility in the process. We also have the ability to build cost models. And so if you are looking to get into service-based costing for delivery of your IT financials and reporting, you can take that budget data and you can load it into a cost model and take those salary and travel and hardware and software dollars and actually line them up to the services or the value proposition of IT to the business. This is what it costs to deliver and maintain laptops. This is what it costs to deliver cybersecurity for the organization. Because a lot of teams, and we saw that in our actual poll, are coming from an Excel environment, moving into a system like ServiceNow can sometimes be a little challenging in the adoption. And so we created within the ServiceNow environment an Excel-like experience where you can have a budget line item, you can see some of the attributes that we're including within that line item, like cost centers and account numbers, and then you can actually put the amount across 12 months. There's some functionality in here that allow you to even spread it, type of thing, so that you don't have to actually put data in every one of those cells, but you can tab and enter within those pieces. And again, this is trying to help the adoption side as you move from an Excel-based environment, so that the team doesn't have to learn a whole new system significantly different than what they're currently used to. So that's the sort of manifesting of this going forward. So at the end of the day, Proven Optics is a scoped application natively built and fully integrated into the ServiceNow platform. And that gives us really three powerful capabilities because we did it that way. So one, we have all the security profile inherited from the underlying platform. So you're not going to have issues with a separate cybersecurity type of event. You're not going to have any data leakage. You're not going to have any external access because you control that environment, because you own the ServiceNow instance that this is deployed on, and it's 100% contained. We have access to all the data on the platform. So if you have a big footprint, a small footprint, a medium footprint inside of ServiceNow, you can actually access that same data set directly from our applications, meaning I can pull over assets from the CMDB. I can pull in projects from PPM. Now we have to onboard data externally as well, because you're not running your ERP system on ServiceNow, at least not yet, right? So we have to pull data in from your ERP, particularly if we want to bring actuals in and do our variance analysis. And ServiceNow as a platform owns the library of APIs that allow us to attach to virtually every ERP system and pull that data in very readily and very easily from that standpoint. And the third thing is all of those dashboards that we were looking at and all that data presentation, you actually now have the ability to not just report financials. You can report financials with additional context of operations, bringing in strategic data, bringing in ELA data, bringing in other types of elements of portfolio view within that dashboard to really help the decision makers and the folks that want to understand this data and connect the dots between I'm spending money, what am I getting for those dollars that I'm spending within that process. So one example we have is Kraft Heinz. So Kraft started off doing IT budgeting with the Proven Optics application on ServiceNow, using also SPM. So SPM, Strategic Platform Management, right? So what they were able to do was get off a spreadsheet-based process that was slow and manual, right? Really looking for good visibility and control at their senior most levels, right? And also a place that had sort of like the single source of truth. And they had some interesting custom-built applications and infrastructure that's sort of legacy. Kraft Heinz has been around for a number of years. So their IT shop is a evolving organization that has come from, you know, early days of when IT first became a key component of delivery within any organization. And just being able to get those pieces together, we were able to not only streamline their budgeting process, provide that context for additional decisioning and insight, but we were also able to take it international, which is fantastic. ServiceNow actually has a native capability for budgeting in multiple currencies. And so, you know, Kraft Heinz was able to bring their international elements through as well. So very, very efficient, very effective, and very scalable, right? So go back to that repeatable, sustainable, scalable side, we're actually able to get that scaling done for sure. Well, I hope you found this conversation to be interesting and important and valuable, and that you learned some things today that you'll be able to use. And of course, we would love to hear from you and get an opportunity to give you a demo. The actual ServiceNow Proven Optics applications are fairly robust and complex. So having a demo kind of walking through kind of the elements of it and how it gets set up is a great way to understand better about the features and the functions and how that process works. We're also going to be at Knowledge. So if you're going to be out in Vegas, May 14th to the 18th, attending the Knowledge 23, we'll have a booth there. Love to see you stop by and chat with us. A little couple things about ServiceNow, Proven Optics. We are second year America's Partner of the Year award winner, which is really a recognition of our application being built on ServiceNow and being able to deliver value to our customers and ServiceNow's customers jointly. And so I think that's a critical thing to keep in mind, that we've won that award 2 years in a row. And we certainly would like to win it a third year in a row. That would be absolutely amazing. One other thing I will share also, ServiceNow recently invested in Proven Optics. So I think that ServiceNow as an organization understands where Proven Optics fits within that ServiceNow functionality, and our ability to integrate natively with the platform has been critical within that process. So we're very pleased that ServiceNow continues to see great value in what we can bring to their offerings, not only for them, for the platform, but for their customers as well. If you'd like to get in touch, there's my information, as well as my email. Happy to connect with you. Would love to hear your journey, your challenges, and see if there isn't a path forward where Proven Optics can help you address some of those challenges that you might be having as well. And I think we're to questions.
Fantastic. Thank you, Bill. I'm going to go ahead and hand it over to Jim to read the questions.
Thank you, Bill and Courtney. We have 3 questions in the chat. If anyone wants to add any additional questions, please do. The first one, looks like most of these are for Bill. How do I know if my company has enough data to implement ITFM?
Well, the first thing I tell everybody, if you're running IT today, you have enough data. It's virtually impossible to run IT without data. The biggest data challenge for most organizations is trying to get the relationships between the different data elements. And again, I think the more data you have on platform, the easier that is. Although we have customers who started their ServiceNow journey with Proven Optics. They literally had no data on platform. I've not run across, in the 100+ implementations I've done, anybody who did not have enough data to get started.
Okay, good. Here's another one. What does a typical implementation look like? And then it says, how long does it take?
Yeah, I think it varies. Our general rule of thumb is it's 16 to 26 weeks. And again, a lot of that depends on the organizational readiness to get things done. Sometimes like workflows, if they're an email, may not be well defined or well understood. There may be some politics in the way of some of that stuff as well. Generally speaking, the base build to just get it set up and ready to go, because the applications come out of the box about 90% ready. The only thing we're doing in that implementation is really tailoring off the data sets and the way we're going to import data, maybe making some additions to the kinds of budget capture you want to do, maybe adding some additional fields that you want for that, and then the workflows and getting the workflows adjusted so that approvals, et cetera, can work efficiently. Generally, that's the implementation timeline. And the long pole in the tent, as they say, is always, organizational readiness.
Okay, good. Looks like we just have one more. 2 more. I am in the ServiceNow store and see several Proven Optics apps. Which do I choose?
Yeah, it depends on what you're trying to do. So we have what we looked at is really kind of a IT financial management suite. And we broke the suite down into specific capabilities because not everybody wants everything. Not everybody's ready for everything. So we have a budgeting and forecasting application, which just does budgeting and forecasting. We have a cost modeling application where you can actually do that cost of service, create those IT services, and do the cost of services. If you are a company that does chargeback or showback, where you're actually creating internal invoices, we have an invoicing function, our invoicing app. Those 3 apps can be combined together to create a full suite. They also can all stand alone and be just for a specific point if you've got a specific pain point that you need to address. The second thing I will tell you is there's 2 of every one of those applications, because we have a public sector, think federal government set of applications that are predicated on commitment-based accounting, which is unique to public sector, higher education, think grants management, and some of our very large nonprofits who do more of a grants management, as compared to our private sector, which is definitely a GAP or IFRS standard accounting practice. And there's just some variations in those accounting structures that we just want to make sure we're clean. So we have a two. So they should say public sector, and if they don't say public sector, then they're the GAP standard approach.
Excellent. And one more has come in. This is a great question. What is success? What are three things that make an ITMF implementation successful?
Yeah, well, I would probably the number one success is when you're in a conversation with a business unit or your finance team where you're typically being chastised and criticized for your budget and not bringing your budget down, or because you're asking for your budget to go up. And instead of them saying, why do you need more money? They say, I completely understand what you're trying to get done. Let's go talk about the value proposition of the options we can pick. And they want to do that together. They don't want to just shove back to you, no, cut 5%. They really want to understand, the value proposition of not spending that money on technology. Again, the biggest return on investment an organization can get is typically in automation, which is driven out of technology. I think the second thing is when people stop asking, what are you spending the money on, right? And they start asking about what would you spend the money on, right? Not what are you, what would you? Because they understand that this is what the money's coming in and this is what it's delivering for the organization. And the third one is what takes you months takes you days, and you're able to execute fairly well that basic process of gathering and building a budget and producing an outcome and doing it in a very, very short period of time. And now you're spending your time analyzing, understanding, looking for opportunities to improve structurally the cost of the organization instead of spending all your time just trying to get the basics set up and running. So those are typically the three big wins that we see.
Good. Okay, well, let's take one more. And if we have additional questions, we can follow up after the fact. Okay, last question. When budgeting in Excel, we have a lot of troubles versioning documents.
Yes.
Can Proven Optics solve this issue?
Absolutely. And that's the nice thing. Not only version control, but also column and formula control, right? Because people, even if you protect the thing, they'll save as, create a new one and jack it up and then send it back to you for you to resolve what they did. So yeah, there's a couple of things that we do on the version side. We timestamp stuff. So you have this idea of here's my initial submission and it comes with a timestamp. And then when somebody wants to make a change to that initial submission, we log the change and we ask them to make a comment. Tell me why you're making this change. And then we timestamp the change. And what this does is allow us to not only version control, but to understand the evolution of the thinking about why that budget needs to be adjusted. Did we learn something we didn't know before? Did we get told by our boss, no way, that's not important? Whatever the case may be. And that has been extremely powerful because it takes that versioning process. If you run 3 iterations typically in your budget cycle, I mean, we're talking about days instead of weeks to get through that process.
Okay, good. So that's it for questions. We could turn it back to Courtney for wrap up.
Thanks, Jim. Thanks, Bill. Thank you, everybody, for joining today. We really appreciate you taking the time. Just a couple plugs here. We encourage you to take a look at our ServiceNow store. You could find it through the ServiceNow website to see all the solutions available to you. Similar to Proven Optics, we have a lot of partners built natively on our platform. Second, if you haven't already, please register for the rest of our store webinars. We've got 2 more on April 27th and another one on May 4th. All of these will be recorded and provided to you on demand, specifically for this webinar, and be sent over to you. And then finally, please join us at Knowledge 2023. The conference will be in Las Vegas the week of May 14th. It's our biggest event of the year. Thousands of your peers will be joining with exhibits and sessions and demos, especially networking. So please join us. My email there is at the bottom. I'm happy to answer any and all questions that you might have. And again, thank you so much for coming over here with us today, and hope to talk to you again soon. Thank you.